Councillors, we're up to item 5, Newcastle City Live Music Strategy. Councillor Duncan.
Lord Mayor, thank you. I think we've got some sleeping users in the chamber this evening.
Really, they should be night owls, Councillor Duncan.
They would, yes. But indeed, I think one of our esteemed elders of the industry has already gone home for his malted milk. That being Mark Tinson, who was here.
Certainly. Well, it's just how the agenda works, but, you know, we appreciate the community support. I'm happy to second the motion too, Councillor.
Thank you.
Please speak to it.
Lord Mayor, it was wonderful to be part of the Labor Newcastle Live Music Roundtable hosted by our Newcastle State MP Tim Crackenthorpe, along with MLC John Graham, Federal Labor MP Sharon Clayton and yourself at the Edwards just a few weeks ago. And I thank everybody who gave their time to come along and take part in what is really a critical discussion for Newcastle's live music industry. This is a pillar of our nighttime economy, supporting working musicians, bands, venue operators and venue staff. And indeed, as we've discussed over previous weeks, Newcastle's nighttime economy employs over 12,000 people and is worth approximately $1.4 billion. Newcastle was once an Australian leader in developing musical talent and providing a base for bands to launch themselves into the national industries of recording and touring, but from those halcyon days we've seen a very serious decline in the numbers of venues who offer live music to the community and a subsequent decline in the number of working musicians. Of course, all of these things are related, but Newcastle has grown up and our city is changing before our eyes in the most exciting and wonderful ways. We're going to see an ongoing influx of new residents into the city over the next few years, an increase in the numbers of young people and young families in the cities, boosted also by the movement of the University of Newcastle campuses to the CBD. I'm incredibly excited and motivated by the change that's underway in our city now, but we need to ensure that we act to protect and grow our live music industry, all of our creative industries, before we lose them. We've become, I guess, quite used to acting retrospectively, but that usually means that the horse has bolted. But in the case of live music, it means the venues have closed, the opportunities for live music have diminished. So I think we need to treat our live music, our local live music industry with respect, not just because of that $1.4 billion nighttime economy, which I think you pointed out recently, Lord Mayor, was the 6th largest nighttime economy in Australia. So that's huge. That is so important. But we also need to treat our local live music industry with respect because of the human imperative of what live music gives to all of us, whether we're players or we're listeners. So this motion proposes measures that will help to ensure that people who work in the live music industry, promote the live music industry, or invest in making our enjoyment of live music possible, they will have some sense of support from council and surety of action within this industry. Now, I note that just some of the measures include the creation of the Newcastle Local Live Music Industry Advisory Group. No one knows this industry better than the people in it. A commitment to a healthy live music industry in Newcastle Council's next community strategic plan and a detailed live music strategy. It also includes protection of the live music industry and nighttime economy by including changes to Section 149 certificates and acoustic privacy conditions. I just want to actually table a letter that Brian Lizotte, who I note is also in the chamber tonight, has given to me. It's a letter that he has sent just today to myself and to State MP Tim Crackenthorpe about proposed development behind his venue, Lizotte's in Lambton. And he writes that if this, if approved by council, would essentially result in, I think Brian mentioned it to me recently, is having someone like Mick Fleetwood, one of the world's most famous and powerful drummers, drumming right next door to someone's bedroom. So I'd like to table Brian's submission as his letter this evening as well. But the measures also include that as a council which owns and operates properties, that we develop a process whereby we can make our own venues available by live music operators for all ages gigs. God knows that our young citizens are struggling to find spaces to play and to share and to grow as young musicians, performers, entrepreneurs and creatives. So surely we can do better here. For our established industry participants, Mark Tinson, I noticed, was here earlier. Brian Lizotte is here, Stephen Pickett and many others joining us in the chamber this evening. We also need to do better to support them, to support their livelihood, to support their businesses, their customers and their families. They can't do it without us, and we can't grow a truly healthy, diverse and enjoyable world-class city with them. So I recommend this motion to the Chamber, and Lord Mayor, please, we need to let the music play. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other speakers on the motion? Look, I commend your passion on this topic and your long history and involvement with live music, Councillor. It was a very fruitful discussion we had with a number of concerned citizens, as well as a number of players in the industry and people that have been in either performing live music, producing live music, or providing venues for live music for many, many decades. And we do have a very proud history of being known for our live music products. Not just, as I said, on that day of the forum, not just in popular music or rock and roll music or punk rock music or heavy metal music. We have a conservatorium of music here in Newcastle, and we also produce very fine classical musicians. So we do have the whole spectrum here in the city of Newcastle, and I think it's really important that we look at what has been done in other cities, and as this notice of motion details, a number of other cities throughout Australia have looked at live music policies and strategies and how they can actually support existing live music venues through very simple changes, whether it's to a change in a Section 149 certificate, whether it's ensuring there are double glazing in any developments nearby, venues that currently offer live music. These are changes that I know have been very successful and rolled out in the city of Wollongong, and by no means should we be not looking at how we can roll those out here in Newcastle. I note that Council unanimously supported the Liquor, Gaming and Racing's inquiry into our nighttime economy, and that was a very unanimous position with this council. And we noted the importance of our after dark strategy and the nighttime economy that Councillor Duncan has raised. It is the 6th largest nighttime economy in Australia, and a very important part of not only our employment mix but our cultural mix here in the city of Newcastle. There has to be, and this is very much a takeout from that forum where there were 3 levels of government in attendance, it has to be, again, a consistent and collaborative approach between 3 levels of government. There are a number of things that council can do, but there are also very much imperatives, particularly around planning and legislation that falls on the state government, as well as other types of legislation to do with live music, the distribution, the import controls and IP around what the federal government can do in this space. So it has to be, I believe, a very much whole of government approach and a unified approach, but there is easily identifiable low-hanging fruit in those discussions that council can, with this notice of motion, move quite quickly on and providing protections in place. And you have to see it in the context of the change that is happening in the city of Newcastle, and which is great for this city, but also making sure that change is inclusive. With $1 billion of developments approved throughout the city in the last financial year, we're tracking for $1.5 billion in DA approvals through the city. We have to make sure that we have the right controls in place so that development ensures that live music venues can continue to operate adjacent to or abutting residential properties. It happens in other cities in Australia and around the world and happens successfully, and it is small changes to acoustic controls and S149 certificates that can actually provide that protection for existing live music venues, which I think is a really important path for council to pursue in assisting the preservation and protection of this industry in Newcastle. What I thought was very heartening in that forum was the amount of young people that are seeing a resurgence in live music being played around Newcastle, and also the attendance of Vanessa Hutchins, who manages the Civic Theatre. And council not only has regulatory controls in this area, we're very much involved in the provision of space for theatre and live music in the Civic Theatre and the Playhouse, and also another number of other institutions throughout the city. So we have a lot of skin in this game, and I know that the majority of the councillors are very, very supportive of protecting and preserving our cultural links, as well as our future economic benefits that flow on from protecting that live music industry in Newcastle. So I'm very supportive of the motion, and we'll open it up for any further comment from councillors. Or everyone's just Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I rise to support this motion, and I do so as a great music fan, and am very proud to be part of Newcastle and to see the wonderful music culture that we have here, and which has been here for a very, very long time. I wasn't here as a young child or a teenager. I spent my dancing and singing days in another town, but music is something which brings people an enormous amount of pleasure. It also brings people an opportunity for expressing their creativity, and it gives them an opportunity to spend time and enjoy time with others. I was dismayed, I'm a bit older than most I suppose here, but I was dismayed to see the death of live music in pubs and clubs from poker machines many, many years ago. And it was very sad to see so many venues disappearing because of gambling. And I'm really, really pleased to see this motion's come to the chamber. I'm really pleased to see so many people here supporting it in the gallery, and very, very happy to commend the motion in the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just very briefly, I just want to speak in support of Councillor Duncan's motion. It's and it was very well put to the chamber, and it would be an absolute travesty to see live music disappear from Newcastle. I can still fondly remember the first live gig I went to many, many years ago. I don't remember the entire night. It was quite a long one, but it was a very enjoyable night, and it was a real eye-opener. It was the start of many more, and I'd hate to think that young people today wouldn't have that opportunity.
Are you going to tell us stories from your youth as well, Councillor Church?
No way, Lord Mayor. That remains a well-kept secret. I also rise in support of this, but I don't want to be the one who rains on the parade. But the matter of live music and residential development together causes a point of friction. I note that Councillor Duncan has mentioned that in her motion and has put forward some recommendations on how planning can work around that. But we saw it recently with the Star Hotel issue and a public voice. We need to be alive to that, particularly in Ward 1, where we're seeing a higher density of residential development closer to where people do want to also entertain themselves at night and to be entertained. Yes, very supportive of this in principle, but I don't want us to get too carried away, because it will be an ongoing issue and a dilemma for this council to strike the right balance between residential amenity and live music. And I just want that noted, not as a negative point, but for something that we will need to keep live in our considerations going forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further speakers? If there are no further speakers, Councillor Duncan, your right of reply.
Lord Mayor, yes, just quickly, I just wanted to reiterate that I think we need to have the courage of our convictions in ensuring, in supporting this motion, that those sort of protections are put in place, and that we decide what sort of city we want Newcastle to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favour of the motion? All those in favour of the motion, please stand. Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Church, Councillor Rufo, Councillor Luke, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Dunn, Councillor Winnie Bartz, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Clausen, Councillor White, Councillor Nelms. As there are no votes against, I declare that motion carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That actually... I think people are cheering because we had a very good unanimous motion, but you also get to get off the hook because we're about to go into confidential session, which means we have to clear the gallery. So you can stretch your legs. So I just need a motion from councillors to move into confidential sessions as per the reasons stated in the business papers. Councillor White moves, seconded Councillor Winnie Bartz. All those in favour, please raise your